It's a calm and still night on Scotland's Butt Sound. 3 trawlers drift silently across the bay, their navigation lights flickering against the dark surface. From time to time, they pass one another as they drag their heavy nets along the deep trench below. The captains stay alert, eyes fixed on the waters ahead, while the deckhands work tirelessly with the gear, their movements practiced, almost rhythmic. Unbeknownst to the crews above, something has already begun to stir far beneath them. And for one of these boats, a simple turn of the wheel will soon set in motion a disaster no one could foresee. This is the story of the Antares. The Loch of Scotland. HMS Trenchant, a nuclear-powered Trafalgar-class submarine, stretches 82 meters in length and carries a crew of 120. It's a grey, overcast morning as 6 trainees and their commanding officer prepare to board. These men are candidates for the Royal Navy's infamous Perisher course, a grueling 24-week program designed to test whether they have what it takes to command a submarine. Renowned for its intensity, it's considered one of the most demanding command courses in the world. Their commanding officer, a veteran with 18 years of service aboard such vessels, watches them closely. At 41, it's been 10 years since he completed his own Perisher course, back in 1980. Once aboard, Trenchant proceeds to a designated exercise zone between Scotland and the Faroe Islands. For the next 4 days, she runs a series of complex simulations and navigation drills, pushing the trainees to their absolute limits. It's 11 p.m. in the small fishing village of Carradale. The crew of the trawler Antares prepares for another 5-day trip at sea. They load supplies, check the lines, and cast off into the night. Their destination lies northeast of the Isle of Arran, toward the deep trench of the Butt Sound, a well-known fishing ground they visited countless times before. Built in 1965, Antares is a wooden trawler, 57 feet long, with a crew of 4. Her skipper, 36 years old, seasoned and steady, bought the vessel 3 years earlier and has fished aboard her ever since. Tonight feels like any other night, routine, predictable, safe. Nearby, 2 other trawlers, Harrow from Troon and Hercules from Ayr, are also working the same waters. Over the following days, the vessels drift in and out of radio and visual contact as they pass each other in close proximity. Antares occasionally moves to different grounds, but she always returns to the trench, her most reliable spot. On the evening of November 21st, conditions are near perfect, light winds, visibility of 8 miles, and an air temperature of 11 degrees Celsius. Antares makes a brief stop at the port of Largs to unload her catch, then quickly returns to sea. By 5:30 p.m., she's back at the southern end of the Butt Sound. The crew shoot their fishing lines and begin towing in a northwesterly direction. Ahead of them in the darkness, the men can see Harrow also heading northwest. The captain of Antares picks up the VHF radio. He informs Harrow as skipper that he is going to rest below deck for a short while, leaving another crewman in control. The 2 men chat briefly before signing off with a casual, "Over and out." By this time, Trenchant has completed the first phase of her North Sea exercise and is now heading south. The demanding course has already taken its toll. The 6-man trainee team is now reduced to 4. The submarine proceeds toward the Clyde training area, accompanied by the surface ship Charybdis. From this point onward, every movement of Trenchant is recorded in the ship's log in precise detail. At 11:30 p.m., her crew is assigned a new task, a dummy mine-laying exercise in the nearby Hunter Channel, a narrow stretch of water requiring absolute precision. In this exercise, Charybdis acted as the opposing force, while Trenchant performed a series of evasive maneuvers to avoid detection, a technically demanding exercise in a narrow stretch of water. When the drill was complete, both vessels left the channel to practice mock attack scenarios in open sea. At 1:31 a.m., Trenchant ascended to periscope depth for a simulated torpedo run, attempting to spot Charybdis. The duty captain slowly scanned the horizon. Through the periscope, he reported only one contact, the naval vessel, no other ships in sight. The exercise continued for another 30 minutes before being declared complete at 2 a.m. The submarine then descended again, settling at a depth of 60 meters, and set a northwesterly course toward the Isle of Arran at a steady 6 knots. At this point, the course leader and the ship's captain retired to the wardroom to discuss the trainee's performance, while command of the vessel was temporarily handed over to a student officer. Above the surface, the Harrowin was towing northwest, passing Antares, which was heading in the opposite direction, southeast. About 10 minutes later, Harrowin's watchkeeper looked back and noticed Antares turning starboard, coming back around to a northwesterly tow. Everything appeared normal. He watched for a moment longer, unaware that those would be the last moments anyone would ever see the Antares afloat. At 2 o'clock a.m., the crews of Harrowin and Hercules exchanged brief messages over VHF. They noted that Antares was no longer visible, neither by eye nor on radar, but assumed she had simply moved to another fishing ground. No one raised the alarm. Both vessels continued their work in silence. Beneath them, Trenchant's duty captain made a routine course correction -315 degrees, true north. Almost immediately, multiple contacts appeared on sonar. They were marked as M1, M3, M5, and M45. M1 was quickly identified as Charybdis, now departing the area. But contact number 5, labeled as a fishing vessel, was growing louder, and its bearing was changing rapidly. The passive sonar couldn't provide an exact range, but the signal strength -35 decibels indicated it was alarmingly close. The trainee captain ordered a sharp turn to port. As Trenchant's bow swung through the black water, the sonar operator suddenly reported that contact 5 was closing fast and was now well inside the required 2,000-yard exclusion zone. The duty captain eased the rudder, hoping to slow their approach, but it was already too late. At 2:19 a.m., the submarine shuddered violently. A series of loud bangs echoed through the control room, followed by scraping metal. The sonar controller shouted, "Trawl snag." Engines were immediately stopped as the sounds of wires grinding against the submarine's hull filled the crew's headsets. Among the static, they could hear something else, the distinct hum of a propeller spinning up, and then chaos. The course leader rushed back into the control room, retaking command amid confusion and noise. For the 4 men aboard Antares, the moments that followed were filled with terror. Everything had been routine, until, without warning, the trawl wires went rigid, wrenching tight with immense force. The vessel jerked violently, listing to starboard as the gear was pulled backwards through the sea. The power of the submarine dragging the trawl caused Antares to roll over completely onto her side. In seconds, freezing sea water poured through the open wheelhouse as the boat began to sink. The skipper and 1 crewman fought desperately to escape. There was no time to send a mayday. Their final act was to try restarting the engines, hoping to break free. They pried at the wheelhouse windows, but the rushing water was relentless. And then, silence. Antares slipped beneath the surface, vanishing into the dark with all 4 crew still on board. A short while later, Trenchant returned to periscope depth. The captain scanned the waters. He could see 2 trawlers still fishing as normal. Everything seemed calm, as it should be. He radioed Charybdis, whose captain confirmed that no alarms had been raised. Satisfied, the commander ordered the crew to continue with the next phase of their exercise, unaware that, just below, an entire vessel had been dragged to its death. The sea was calm again, as if nothing had happened. Still uneasy, the captain ordered Trenchant to surface for a full inspection. When the submarine broke through the waves, the crew quickly noticed something strange, lengths of steel wire and chain tangled tightly around the tower. It was clear they had caught something, but with no signs of distress anywhere on the surface. No one yet understood the gravity of what had happened. The captain paused to think. All reports suggested that no vessels in the area were in trouble. At 3:15 a.m., he sent a routine message to the operations room at Faslane. Radio operators there confirmed they had received no distress calls, so the decision was made to continue with the scheduled training exercises. 6 hours later, quiet suspicion began to grow. By 9 a.m., the alarm was officially raised. Several ships in the area were now reporting floating debris, pieces of wood, fish boxes, and traces of oil spreading across the surface. A helicopter was dispatched for reconnaissance. From the air, the crew saw unmistakable signs of an accident: the slick rainbow shimmer of fuel, scattered crates, and nets drifting aimlessly. The realization struck hard. Something terrible had happened during the night. A coordinated search and rescue operation was launched immediately. After a day of scanning the waters, the RMAS Triador detected a wreck resting on the seabed, 150 meters down. She lay on her starboard side, facing northeast. Given the depth, a team of saturation divers was deployed to investigate. It didn't take long for confirmation. The wreck was the Antares. Over the following weeks, recovery operations began. When the vessel was finally brought to the surface and examined, it was found to be largely intact. Her hull was sound, though the electrical systems had been destroyed by saltwater. The wooden structure, the nets, even the tools, all frozen in time, as if the boat had simply stopped breathing. Meanwhile, the search for the fourth and final crew member continued. Despite knowing the exact location of the wreck, the recovery of the last body would take several months. The investigation later concluded that the collision was the result of failures in trenchant tests, watchkeeping, and situational awareness. The crew had mistaken two sonar contacts for one, not realizing that a second vessel was directly above them. At the time, Royal Navy standing orders required submarines to remain at least 2,000 yards away from fishing vessels. Additionally, the captain's own directive stated he was to be notified immediately if the submarine ever came within 4,000 yards of a surface contact. Neither of these rules had been followed. As a result of the tragedy, several key changes were introduced to Royal Navy operations. These included a mandatory 3,000-yard exclusion zone around all fishing vessels, and a new rule requiring submarines to surface when not actively engaged in training, with surface ships present to monitor the area. But for the crew and families of Antares, these changes came far too late. Her recovered hull would spend the next 18 years on display at the Scottish Maritime Museum in Irvine, a haunting memorial to a routine night that turned into disaster. In 2008, the vessel was finally dismantled. Today, the pier at Carradale is still busy with boats. Fishermen prepare their nets, voices echo across the harbour, and trawlers hang quietly from their ropes. And if you look east, toward the Isle of Arran, you'll see a small bronze plaque fixed to the sea wall, a final tribute to Antares and her 4 lost men.